And welcome once again to another episode of S2E31 Productions presents
JDM, Solve the World.
After Dark. There we go. To our tens of listeners, he is James, and I am Matt, and we are going to continue with the discussion of Generation X. Yeah, forgot to turn on the
On the smoke heater.
Yep. Which, yeah.
Yep. I screwed up the intro.
It's okay.
I am James.
Yes. You know, one of the things that we didn't get around to talking about on the Gen X continuation video, wrestling.
Wrestling, yes.
How it became larger than life. It became part of pop culture.
Right, yeah. It became, it wasn't just, and back in the day, in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, wrestling drew a huge number of fans. But it was still kind of a niche.
Yep.
It wasn't part of, a lot of people knew who Gorgeous George was back in the day and, Harley Race and stuff, but it wasn't until Vince McMahon started doing his expansion and brought in WrestleMania, basically was what started that put professional wrestling in the mainstream. You had the rock and wrestling connection with Cyndi Lauper and
Captain Lou Albano played her dad, and Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
Right.
Jake the Snake had Alice Cooper in his corner for one of them. But, they came to television.
Right.
And,
before then, before cable television, especially, wrestling was on here locally on Saturday night at like midnight or some shit, or 11 o'clock at night.
Right.
That was our local territory wrestling,
Yeah.
And then WTBS started showing Georgia Championship Wrestling.
Yep.
And that started, because I had a friend of mine, they had cable and just came to Bolivar, and he's telling me about seeing these Night at the Omni and stuff, and I'm like, well, that's cool, because there was one time I get to see Tommy Rich is in a magazine.
Right. Well, and then, believe it or not, Vince had bought TV time from Ted Turner.
He did. And that basically, because I've heard Cornette talk about this, and they were supposed to have live wrestling shows in Georgia. But all Vince did was he bought the TV time, and he showed his show that he taped in New York.
Yeah, Madison Square Garden.
Yeah. And it was like the Southern fans said, fuck you.
Yeah.
This ain't real wrestling. This ain't our wrestling. This is that cartoon Vince McMahon shit.
Yeah.
We want our wrestling back.
Well, and when Ted bought WCW, and he called up Vince, and he said, hey, I'm in the wrestling business too. And Vince just told him,
he said,
well, that's good.
Yeah.
I'm in the entertainment business.
Right.
And,
which actually, when Ted bought WCW, and they had some big, the whole Monday Night Wars with Monday Nitro and everything, Ted owned WCW then.
Yes.
But that was kind of the beginning of the end.
Right.
Because when he bought Jim Crockett Promotions, because Jim Crockett was a wrestling promoter. He knew how to promote wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Ted Turner was a businessman.
Yep.
And he hired Jim Herd, who knew nothing about the wrestling business.
Right.
And they got hot for 83 weeks, and then that was about it.
Well, and,
just because of the talent they had,
right.
With Sting and Flair and the Four Horsemen. And,
well, shall we forget that under Jim Herd, which of course Dusty Rhodes had already put it into movement, but Jim Herd had the very first recognized African American world heavyweight champion.
Right, and Ron Simmons.
Yep.
Yep.
And it was Herd, Harley, Vader, and Ron. Mm-hmm. Those were the only 4 people that knew that Ron was going over that night.
Yeah.
And and we had watched Ron say, I mean, even to this day, he's still getting letters from around the world and people saying, hey, that inspired me. Mm-hmm. And it did.
Yeah. We were watching it the other night. Yeah. I still wonder what belt was he wearing. I mean, was it an interim championship belt before, after the 10 pounds of gold and before the big gold, or was that when Flair took the big gold to WWF?
I'm wanting to say at that time that Flair had taken the big gold to WWF.
Because he showed up.
Yes.
Wearing
the big gold
WCW belt.
Yes, he did.
Yep.
And because that belt that Ron had really kind of mimicked the WWF Winged Eagle belt.
It's kind of funny because Flair did that, and because Medusa showed up on Monday Nitro and dropped the WWF Women's Championship in the trash can.
Yep.
All that led to the Montreal Screwjob.
Yes.
Vince said that wasn't happening again.
Mm-hmm. Well, and, going back to the Monday Night Wars, it all started when, Eric Bischoff and Scott Hall, they came up with the invasion angle. Right,
because everybody thought, the internet wasn't as big then, and so people couldn't read the shit. But when Scott Hall showed up on Raw or on Nitro,
yeah,
everybody's like, that's a WWF guy.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
And he got in the ring, and you know who I am.
Yeah.
You know where I am, but you don't know why I'm here. Doing the whole, still rocking the Razor
persona, but
persona.
Not,
yeah. And then when Nash showed up, holy shit.
Yeah.
And I mean, they played the angle, and where it really fell out of place was when the NWO got too big.
Yeah, if they'd have just stuck with Hall and Nash and Hogan, then Giant, he was with them for a while. 'Cause I remember the ads for their T-shirts. We got medium, large, giant size.
Yes. And it became too much. Mm-hmm. And that's where, because
most of the roster, everybody but Sting, then Sting became a member of the NWO, the Wolfpack.
But DX on the other side of the table, if you will. It started out Shawn, Triple H, and Chyna.
Yep.
And then they only grew to, they got X-Pac, and then they had the New Age Outlaws.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah. That was about perfect,
Yeah. And
the 4 Horsemen didn't expand to the 20 Horsemen.
No, they were always just the 4 Horsemen.
Yeah. They changed members.
Yes.
In and out. They turned on Ole, and that's when Luger came in. And
Mongo McMichaels came in after.
And Green. Green and Mongo came in at the same time.
Oh, yeah. Green was playing football for the Panthers.
Right.
And Mongo had played football for the Bears.
The Bears, yep.
And I got to go back and really look at that, because he wore that Super Bowl ring and everything, and it's like, were you really on the Super Bowl shuffle?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, no. I would say I would check it out, and you would see it up on the screen, blah, 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 but this is an After Dark,
After Dark, yeah.
You're not going to see it up on the screen.
Yeah, that was you know, like I say, it was a big change in the professional wrestling, but like I say, it became mainstream.
Right.
I mean, who in the United States didn't know who Stone Cold Steve Austin was?
Right.
Or
And
The Rock.
yes.
You know, Goldberg.
There was that time where it kind of dipped, but then the Attitude Era started, and you know, you could say that it was the Invasion, but the actual Attitude Era officially kicked off when you got your John 3:16. Well, Austin 3:16 says, "I just whooped your ass," and that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so.
And that was before he was a face.
Yeah.
He was still a heel.
Yeah.
And they done the double switch with him and Brett.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I mean, that was the first time I ever seen a heel change, whatever you want to call it, to where the guy never changed his character whatsoever. He was still Stone Cold, but instead of getting booed, everybody cheered him.
Right.
Because he was just the ordinary, just badass and just going to whoop your ass. And especially when he got in the feud with Mr. McMahon.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, everyday people are like, I'd like to kick my boss's ass.
Right.
You know, but he's doing it. That's cool.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. You know, and it was, you know.
Not really, Kevin. I don't want to kick your ass. I'm just saying ordinary people out there.
Well, okay. What other president has gotten the stunner?
Right.
Because, I mean, they showed the picture after when Trump first got elected, and the McMahon family's there, and it says how many people in this picture have never gotten a stunner, and I think Melania and Ivanka.
Right.
But Vince, Linda, Stephanie, Shane, Donald Trump.
Right.
Yeah, they had all gotten fucking stunnered.
Yep.
You know, in the Attitude Era.
And what if Umaga would have won that match and Donald would have got his head shaved?
Okay, the reemergence of Iron Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
When he showed up, and he was back in DX.
Well, when he showed up, he was going to be the referee.
Right.
At Shawn Michaels' match, and he was supposed to be in Vince's hip pocket.
Yep.
But then he took the shirt off, and he had the DX shirt on.
Right. And I would love to know how long it took him to be able to pull his punch.
Oh, yeah.
Because...
Well, you're trained from a child to punch through somebody's face?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean...
there was a... Oh, fuck, who was it? They were talking about... I think it was Jake the Snake, and he was talking about when Muhammad Ali came up, and he said, and Ali, you know, threw the punch at him, and he kind of no-sold it. You know, that was part of what he was supposed to do.
Yeah.
And like the third time, then that's when he sold it. But he's like, I was scared to death. He said, because we're talking about freaking Muhammad Ali here. He said, but he threw them punches, and he said, never felt a thing. He said it was just right on the edge of his chin, you know. He said that's how much control that man had. And Tyson might have been the same way.
Right. Because, I mean...
Unlike Terry Funk.
Oh, my God.
Who didn't know how to pull a punch even though he was a professional wrestler.
Well, okay. Moving past that, you know, we've the most shocking and the most talked about moment in professional wrestling.
Hogan's heel turn?
Mm-mm.
No?
No. Shadow's that. Mick Foley being hip-tossed off the top of the cell.
Oh, yeah.
At King of the Ring.
Yeah.
You know, it...
And there was still a world title match after that.
Yeah.
How'd you like to bid them guys? How are we going to follow that shit?
Yeah.
You know,
Kane has talked about it.
Besides the hip toss, and then the cage busted and him going through it, which was not planned.
No.
But you go back and rewatch that, and you can hear those wire ties snapping when they're up there walking. You hear them go ping.
And that, Taker was saying that, but okay, as I'm watching that and I'm looking at it, those look like zip ties.
Yeah, but I think they were actually metal crimps. Yeah. But yeah, they look like zip ties popping. Yeah.
Black zip ties, just bing, bing. Because Taker was like 300 pounds. Mm-hmm. Foley was close to 300 pounds.
Right.
So you got 600 pounds. Mm-hmm. And because you can see where, as they're walking through the panels, they really start to sink.
Oh, yeah.
So then they started sticking to the poles.
Right. To the braces.
Yeah. You know.
And Taker said, luckily, when he chokeslammed him, he said that was probably the worst chokeslam he's ever done because he got virtually no elevation on it.
Foley said that.
Yeah.
Because normally when he does that chokeslam, he jumps and it gets all that.
But he said if he'd have done that, he'd have probably landed on his head and died.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would have over-rotated.
Of course, the most horrific moment was the Owen Hart situation in Kansas City.
Yes. On pay-per-view.
Yeah.
And okay.
And to this day, about everybody that was on that show said we should have stopped it right then. Mm-hmm. But Vince said, no, show must go on. And the next match in the ring, there they are with Owen Hart's blood in the corner.
And it was...
knowing that he did not... I mean, he was dead when they took him out of the ring. Yeah. They didn't announce it until later, but...
Yeah. Because I believe it was Taker. Taker was in that very next match.
It could have been. I can't remember.
But, I mean, that is very horrific, but...
And there's no footage. You'll find no footage of that.
Exactly.
Anywhere.
Exactly.
Because I've Googled it. It is like... It'll pop up, but it'll show him when he was coming down as the Blue Blazer, down on the aisleway or the side of the ring or something like that. But that footage has been stricken from the record. You'll never find it.
Yeah.
It may be in a vault in WWE headquarters somewhere, but and nobody had cell phones back then.
And you weren't getting a video camera in. Yeah, I mean it's that was terrible. But that Hell in a Cell.
Yeah.
And Mick just wanted to... He didn't want to overshadow what Shawn Michaels and Undertaker had done the previous year because that was a phenomenal match. He just wanted to be as good.
And they did, even after taking the fall off the cell, the fall through the cell, he still had to do the thumbtacks.
Oh, yeah. The debut of the thumbtacks in Western wrestling television.
Right.
And Taker just, hey, Mick, let's
go home.
Let's go home.
Yeah. No, we got to do the tacks.
God damn it. One time wasn't enough, so.
Jericho was talking about they had that blood and guts match or whatever it was in AEW. And they'd had tacks and all kinds of shit, and he's up on top of the cage. And he said, I'm sliding all over the place because my boots are full of freaking tacks, and you're on a metal cage. He said, I had no freaking traction. He said, I'm trying to scrape them out.
And it, there's that Hell in a Cell. There's so many memorable moments. Him going off the cell, him going through the cell, him setting up in the corner, trying to stick his tongue through the hole in his lip.
Right.
And
the tooth in his nose.
Yeah. Taker's like, oh my God, he's got a booger.
Yeah.
He's got a boogie. And even Mick, later on, when he finally sat down and watched the whole thing, he was like, oh my God, it does look like a boogie. Okay.
And then too, you had, if not the greatest, one of the greatest commentators commentating that match in Jim Ross.
Oh my God.
They've killed him. They broke him in half. I mean, Well, what I liked about Raw, especially back then, and he's talked about it, he never wanted to know the outcome of a match
Yes.
beforehand, because a lot of them did,
Uh-huh.
know. But he wanted to call it as he seen it.
Yep.
He didn't want to know if somebody's going to lose title or what the hell is going to happen. He wanted to call it as a fan would be watching it at home.
Right.
And
that was
because he wanted that element of surprise. He's like, well, son of a bitch,
Yeah. And JR, he did have Vince in his headset.
Mm-hmm.
King did not.
Mm-hmm.
And the King was very animated.
Mm-hmm.
Puppies. Yeah. I mean, that was off the top of his head.
Yeah.
And I think, my personal opinion, I believe that JR and Jerry the King Lawler were the greatest wrestling announcers.
Yeah, combo. Yeah.
Of all time, because JR was he was the straight man, if you will, but he had those one-liners here and there.
Right.
And where the King, he is a wrestler, but
who was still quite active at that time.
Oh yeah.
I mean, in fact, he wrestled in 2022.
Yeah. And I think shortly after that is when he
had his
heart attack.
Another heart incident and everything, and or stroke or something, wasn't it?
Maybe.
Yeah, I think so, because he had a heart attack on national television.
Yeah.
On Monday Night Raw.
Jesus.
Okay. I've got into this discussion, and we'll get off the wrestling, with people who aren't wrestling fans. Are like, well, it's all predetermined, and it's all scripted and choreographed and everything, and it's not a real sport. I'm like, when I sit down to watch, I don't know who's going to win.
Yes.
If you pay attention and you watch it, you're thinking, that's like WrestleMania this year. Mm-hmm. I thought for sure Cody Rhodes was going to beat Roman Reigns.
Right.
But he didn't. So I don't know who's going to win. You don't know who's going to win unless you're, part of the writers or team or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, the fans don't know who's going to win. Like, say, if you watch it enough, you can kind of, okay, this is going here. But every once in a while, they throw you a swerve, and you're like, whoa, what the hell?
I mean, they've changed last-minute stuff.
Oh, yeah.
The Brock beating Taker at WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
That was a last-minute. That was that day change.
Right.
And
I, personally, if I was a booker, whatever, I wouldn't give them the finish until the last day, until that day anyway, just because if you already know going in and a week before that you're going to lose, how are you really going to do a promo saying that, I'm going to take that title from you and everything? I mean, yeah, it's your job. That's what you do. But if you don't know, it'd be easier to make that promo. And especially back then when they was just like, okay, here's the high points of your promo.
Yep.
Go.
Unless you were the Macho Man Randy Savage.
Right.
And Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
Right. We planned every move.
At WrestleMania 3 for the Intercontinental title.
Oh,
and
160.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
said, we're going to steal the show.
Yeah. And they did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we've spent about 25 minutes talking about wrestling.
Well, we've neglected it in 2 podcasts, but
yes.
Yeah.
Let's move on to food and beverages.
Food and beverages, yeah.
Okay. Stuff that we've seen come and gone during Gen X.
Well, the one thing, growing up as a kid, I did not know you could have rice any other way but boiled with cream, sugar, and cinnamon on it. Until I had my first cashew chicken.
Yep.
I'm like, fried rice? Whoa, what the fuck's... I mean, it's boiled first, but then it's fried. It's like,
right.
This is pretty fucking tasty, something that happened when I was born in 1966, that was the first day that my dad and my brother Gary ever had pizza.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because you got to think about back then, there wasn't a Pizza Hut in every little town.
Right.
And, you know, I mean, pizza was New York and Chicago.
Yeah, but I would have figured, being your dad was in Europe during World War II.
He wasn't in Italy.
Ah. Okay.
And I don't think they had time to go to the grab a slice.
Yeah.
You know, dodging Nazi bullets.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Well, I mean, because after Normandy and, you know, the Americans pushed past Normandy and everything, to go back to the quote-unquote rear to regroup and relax and refit, yeah, you went back to France.
Right.
So,
They
you
had
know.
crepes.
Yeah. Let's see here. Let's fuck, I just Pepsi free.
Yeah. Had the biggest blunder in the soda industry ever.
New
New
Coke.
Coke.
Yes.
We were on our senior trip when New Coke came out. And we're like, oh, yeah, New Coke, you know, and stopped at McDonald's or whatever and got a New Coke, or maybe it was at a convenience store or something.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, I guess I'm not drinking Coke anymore.
Yeah. It's like Pepsi.
Yeah.
And then
And
they
they-
came out with Coke Classic.
Yeah. Which was
Classic formula.
the old formula that,
Yeah.
not the old formula with
No.
actual cocaine in it.
Oh my God, that'd be great. I mean, drugs are bad.
Drugs are
Okay.
bad, okay.
You know, television and
Oh.
special effects. Wait, I'm sorry. Zima.
Zima.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd brought that up a bit ago, and
Yeah.
it's like, I remember Zimas.
Yeah. I mean, every bar they was pushing
Oh,
Zima. You know.
fuck.
Of course, then later on, you think about Jägermeister became the new big deal.
Yeah.
You know, especially in college bars and
Oh,
shit,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. You heard about like frat boys getting alcohol poisoning from drinking so much fucking Jägermeister.
Well-
I brought it back from California.
Another drink that came out, you know, relatively in that same time frame was Red Bull. And they started doing the Jaeger bombs and shit with the Jaeger and Red Bull, and that was really fucking people up because they were staying awake so they could drink more
Yeah.
Jaeger.
Goldschlagers,
Oh yeah,
you know.
that little flakes of gold floating
Yeah,
around in that
yeah,
thick,
real
syrupy.
oh.
Yeah,
And I mean, there's just the alcohol like exploded because I'd say before 1980, you had Budweiser, you had Miller, Coors, you did have Miller Lite.
You didn't have Coors west of or east of the Mississippi River though.
That is correct. Just like you didn't have Yingling west of the Mississippi.
Right.
Because Yingling, as some of you may or may not know, is the actually the oldest brewery in America.
Right.
They predate Anheuser-Busch.
Yeah.
But then in like the 80s, Bud Light,
Yeah.
Bud Dry,
Yeah.
Red Dog, Red Wolf.
My beer of choice back then was Miller Genuine Draft.
Oh, yeah.
You know, MGDs.
Oh, yep. I
And
know.
I remember when they changed the caps, the bottle caps from Genuine Draft on top to MGD.
I think we got some.
Yeah, we got some about that.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, okay, moving from the ponies, from the pony glass bottles to the long necks.
Right.
Or, better yet, the invention of the Luma bottle.
The Luma bottle.
It looks like a bottle, but it's aluminum.
Oh, the aluminum. Yeah. Which, you know, it's weird because, you know, everybody's doing the Michelob Ultra now and, you know, trying to stay fit. Well, okay.
I got to watch my carb intake.
Yeah. And I had one. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of shitty. But out of the aluminum bottle, ice cold,
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
right. I don't
It's almost as good as being in a glass bottle
right.
because the aluminum bottle tastes better than the aluminum can.
I do not like beer in a can. Plain and simple. I mean, the way that I prefer to drink beer is draft. There's just something about draft. Oh, shit.
Especially in a frosted mug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The party ball.
Oh God, yeah.
I mean, that was fucking awesome because it was 4-gallon. It was like a 4-gallon keg, and it came with its own tap.
Right.
So there's no.
And you didn't have to rent the keg.
Right.
Because you just bought the party ball.
Yeah.
And when you were done, you do the whole thing away.
Yeah.
Of course, that probably killed some turtles, I'm sure.
I'm sure killed a lot more fucking brain cells.
Okay. Bagged wine.
I think
box wine, I should say.
Yeah. I think box wine came from, I can't drink beer from a keg. Because box wine is basically the same thing.
Right.
It's got a spout.
Got the little you had the little perforation in the box. You pulled it out.
Yep.
You pulled the spout out, and
but
it would sit on your refrigerator shelf so you keep it chilled.
And I think that led to the flat 12-pack, soda 12-packs.
Right.
The refrigerator packages, as they were called. And, I mean, we could sit here and talk about all the shit that we remember.
I was thinking about something earlier. I think it's on our way home when we were all just in the car, quiet and everything. Of course, I'm first part of Gen X, but I grew up, probably my first crush ever, Barbara Eden, I Dream of Jeannie. And right close behind it was Dawn Webb, Mary Ann on Gilligan's Island.
Okay, so those I only got to see in reruns.
Right.
For me, Farrah Fawcett.
Charlie's Angels.
Daisy Duke.
Oh, yeah.
And
Chris used to have a T-shirt that had the General Lee and Daisy Duke standing in front of it.
God, I can't think of her name now.
Heather Locklear?
No. Predates that.
Oh.
The Bionic Woman.
Oh, Lindsay Wagner.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then it, like, we get into the 80s, and then it like really like explodes. Rebecca De Mornay.
Kelly LeBrock.
Yeah. Heather Locklear. My mom liked watching Dynasty and Dallas and all that evening soap opera bullshit.
Knots Landing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would sit and watch it with her sometimes just because, well.
There was some good eye candy on there.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, God, yes.
Of course, she was probably watching that one for Lorenzo Lamas.
Who Shot JR?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I mean, that was.
I had a Who Shot JR T-shirt.
I mean, okay.
I don't remember where Mom found it.
Yeah.
Might have been a yard sale. I don't know.
The fact that you had the National Enquirer.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, doing pieces on, so-and-so shot JR, and it's like, it's a scripted show, right?
Right. I was going to say the same thing as we was talking about wrestling.
Yeah.
But they had everybody hooked.
Yes, they did.
And that was.
And I mean, that was a great season end cliffhanger.
And a lot of the shows back then, that's how they ended every season, was with some sort of a cliffhanger.
Yep.
You're like, oh shit! Now we got to go all summer.
Yeah.
Watching reruns before the fall schedule comes out. We get to see what happened.
Right, and it's not like Sons of Anarchy,
right?
When they would end the season on a cliffhanger, and then the new season starts this night, so I'm going to spend this week before it, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to rewatch all of them.
Right. Yeah.
And you could go to YouTube or wherever, and you could watch all of the episodes. Knight Rider.
Oh, yeah. BJ and the Bear.
BJ McKay, and this is his best friend, Bear. You know, television shows.
Which made everybody want a chimpanzee.
Dude, I'm being 100% completely honest. Down in Collins, coming off of 13, right there at 54, there used to be a cab over Aerodyne semi.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to stop in there several times to find out how much that was. Because that's exactly like what BJ had.
Right.
And if you don't think that I wouldn't have fucking found some way to paint that red, paint it white with the red stripes on it, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, you probably know a guy that could do that.
I think I know a guy.
Yeah.
Who knows a guy? And then being it's not a commercial vehicle, I don't need a CDL.
Right. Unless you was if you ever hooked a trailer up and was hauling a load, then you would.
Yeah.
But
And no.
yeah.
All I got to do is have a little thing on the door that says not for hire.
Talking about some of the shows and stuff that we neglected on our podcast 2 weeks ago. Blues Brothers.
In my opinion, and I've said this before, greatest movie ever.
With actual car crashes.
Yes.
No CGI.
Nope.
Those were stuntmen crashing those cars, getting hurt.
Those were real Illinois State Patrol cars
Right.
and Chicago PD cars. And as a matter of fact, the last movie ever to shoot on Daly Plaza in Chicago. And I mean, the star-studded actors. Steven Spielberg makes an appearance.
Right.
You've got all the fucking musical legends.
Right.
Cab Calloway, James Brown, Aretha Franklin. You got John Lee Hooker on there.
Yep.
And then the Blues Brothers Band.
Right. Oh, which was an all-star cast.
Right. And in my opinion, and it actually stands true up until Wayne's World. But the Blues Brothers was the most successful Saturday Night Live skit spinoff movie.
Right.
Because, it was just a skit, and
Right.
they never talked. There was never a backstory. They would just come out, and they would perform. And now, all of a sudden,
It's a movie.
Here's a whole movie.
Yeah.
The scene where the cop car lands on top of the trailer. That was a one-take thing.
Right.
And, because there's no redoing that.
Well, if you talked about one takes and stuff, the movie The Road Warrior or Mad Max, the first one,
Yep.
a lot of the cars that were crashed in that was the director's own vehicles.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have a budget. And they was just getting the shit anywhere they could, and a lot of the crash scenes, they turned up his shit,
Okay. All the Hal Needham movies.
Oh, yeah.
Burt Reynolds.
Yeah.
Hooper, and of course, Smokey and the Bandit, Cannonball Run,
Right.
Stroker Ace, and Hal Needham was touted, however you want to say it, as the greatest stuntman ever in Hollywood.
Right.
And that's why all of his movies always had amazing stunts.
Another movie, too, that kind of started a legend in NASCAR was Days of Thunder. Rick Hendrick
Yeah.
supplied the cars, the movie cars, for that. And if you go back and watch it, you'll see Hendrick Motorsport sticker on the back of Rowdy's car, and stuff. And those cars, it was kind of funny. I didn't realize this, but they actually were in real races, and
Nice.
they were filming while they were. There was one guy. They had professional drivers in them. Of course, it wasn't
Right.
Tom Cruise and whoever. But this one race, the guy said, I could have probably won the race, but I had all this movie equipment in my car. He said the car itself was fast enough, but he said it just didn't handle right and everything with all the movie equipment in it. But those scenes where they're all on the track and all the cars, they'd film it to where it looked like they were fighting over the lead when they were actually in the back.
Yeah.
They're trying to stay out of the driver's ways. But
well, okay, I mentioned it, Stroker Race.
Mm-hmm.
You had a young Dale Earnhardt.
Yeah.
You had a young Bobby Allison.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you had actual race car drivers.
Yeah. Well, Days of Thunder did too.
Yeah. But, by the time Days of Thunder came out, Earnhardt already had the Intimidator nickname.
That's the rowdy.
Yeah.
The rowdy character
Oh,
was
yeah.
basically Earnhardt. And a lot of people think Tom Cruise's character was Gordon, but no, because that was before Gordon ever became a NASCAR driver.
Yep.
Kind of fit the bill, the California kid, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
He was a California kid that grew up racing in Indiana.
Okay. Horror movies.
Horror movies. The
Yeah.
slasher genre basically
Oh,
started
my God.
in 1980.
Yeah. I mean, okay. We can go back to 77 and talk about Jaws.
75. Yeah.
Okay. Anyways,
yeah.
And that started the whole suspense thing
Oh, yeah.
because the shark didn't work in saltwater. So it was just a camera. It was like a point of view.
Right.
And
that was the first time they'd ever shot. They'd put a camera in a box to where it was going under the water and up.
Yep.
You thought you were actually on the beach. The way it was shot. I mean, they'd done so many different things that had never been done before. And like you say, the shark worked great in the tanks in California, but once they got out to Martha's Vineyard, it didn't work. So they had to redo it, which made the movie a lot better because honestly, the shark looked like shit.
Yeah.
But
the score. Okay.
And the view from the shark's view,
right,
as he's swimming through the legs of the people at the beach, and
the relationship between Steven Spielberg and George Lucas.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked about the E.T. Star Wars thing.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. If you go back and you watch some of the Indiana Jones movies,
mm-hmm.
there's a bar called Obi-Wan. On the in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I don't give a shit that they've changed the name to Indiana Jones and Raiders. No, it was Raiders of the Lost Ark,
right.
Indiana Jones, and the Temple of Doom. But anyways, Raiders, on the pillars, there's 2 hieroglyphics of R2-D2 and C-3PO.
Right, yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
And then, there's, of course, you got the Harrison Ford crossover.
Mm-hmm.
And, George has slipped some Indiana Jones stuff in there,
mm-hmm.
Here and there. And
which I hear, by the way, I haven't seen it yet, but I hear the new Indiana Jones is a pretty good movie.
Yeah.
So it's a little long, but I hear it's pretty good. And I will watch it. I probably won't go to the theater to watch it, but I will watch it.
Let's see here.
Well, we talked about horror movies, the slasher movies.
Oh.
Okay.
Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees.
Yep.
Okay. Now, those you could kind of say are a combination of Frankenstein's monster, the Mummy. It's a combination of those classic Universal monsters, if you will.
Right.
But, with a twist.
Right.
Because with the Universal monsters, you never saw anybody, really die.
Right. Yeah, and you seen Jason hack people up, or...
Yeah.
Like, what was it, part 3, where he shoots a dude with the...
Harpoon gun
right through the eyeball.
Yep. Or the couple that's on the bed and takes that sword and goes straight
machete.
Up.
Yep.
But Freddy Krueger.
Or there's one where I think the guy goes to the bathroom or something, and the girl, she's laying there in bed, and next thing you know, his hand comes up over her forehead, and then the machete starts coming up to the bottom, and you see it coming out of her chest. You know.
Yep. You know, Freddy Krueger, a totally new concept.
Right.
With he's not physical. He's in your dreams.
Yeah.
And you know, American Werewolf in London.
Oh.
In my opinion, the greatest transformation scene that's real.
Right. Yeah.
It's not CGI.
No CGI. It's special effects.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean,
well, another special effects movie, Terminator.
Oh my God.
You know.
Yeah.
The making of that, and you know, they actually built a Terminator skeleton.
Yeah.
Thing, and then like several of the scenes where he's walking and limping after the truck wreck, you know, it's on a like a pallet type deal, and it's just the upper part, but that's all they're filming, and the guys are moving him to where it looks like he's limping, and but they had actual robotics that was moving the hands and stuff. And,
and well, okay,
like where he cuts his eyeball out.
Yep. Oh yeah.
I mean, you can tell that's definitely not Arnold's face. That's an animatronic face and everything. But at the time, it's like, God, that's fucking cool.
Well, okay, but if you think about it, the Terminator is a robot, so he's gonna have, you know, some of the jerkiness,
jerky movements. Yeah.
Jabba the Hutt in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
5 puppeteers to control Jabba the Hutt.
What about Star Wars in general?
Oh God.
The miniatures that they made of whole cities and stuff, and they would fly the TIE fighters and whatever X-Wing fighters through that, you know, and film it. I mean, there was nothing. There was some computer work starting at that point.
And Lucas started, you know, the sound, THX.
Right.
And yeah, the miniatures flying down. I mean, you felt like you were flying down the side of the Death Star,
right? With
Luke, and you're bypassing all these lasers, and you know, and that's all miniatures. And when they blew up the Death Star, that was a one shot,
right?
It's just like in Return of the Jedi when they blew up Jabba's barge. That was a life-size barge that they blew up in the desert. They had one shot.
Yeah, if the cameraman said,
I forgot to put film in it.
Got to put film in it.
Yeah, you're fucking toast, bro.
Well, you know, I can go back. First television I remember watching was black and white.
Yeah.
We had, like, say, 3 channels. And it's just crazy now, the way the technology is. You know, you watch those old Western movies from black and white, which was funny because growing up as a kid, especially once we got a color television, there were still black and white shows on. And you'd see that black and white show, and you go, oh, that's old. Well, it might have been 2 years old. But now, you go back and watch Jaws on high definition television, and you're going, shit, this don't look 50 years old.
Right. You know, if you go back and if you're able to find the original Star Wars before anything was added to it, anything was changed, the actual first release where Jabba is a human in a fur coat. The stormtroopers aren't riding lizards.
Right.
And Luke Skywalker's father's, quote unquote, father's lightsaber is yellow, not blue.
Right.
And
I think I remember because Chris had the action figures, and I think the Luke action figure had a yellow lightsaber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. People want to fucking argue with me, but it's like, that's why at the end of the 9th one, Rise of Skywalker, and spoiler alerts if you haven't seen Star Wars Episode 9, at the end of the movie, Rey has a yellow lightsaber. And she calls herself Rey Skywalker. And, I mean, it is a complete throwback. She's back on Tatooine, and it looks like she's at the, Uncle Owen and Aunt, like the farm from the first one. That's what it looks like.
Right.
But, I digress.
I don't remember if we talked about this on our video, but the comedy.
Oh.
How it's changed in our life,
Oh, yeah. Gone from one-liners to stories.
Right.
To catchphrases.
Right. Get her done.
Yeah. If you've ever been bitten by a raccoon while you were going dump, you might be a redneck. Or
if you've ever mowed your yard and found a Camaro, you might be a redneck.
I was driving down the road and got a flat tire. Guy stops, he's like, got a flat? I said, nope. The other three just kind of blew up. Here's your sign.
Yep. We was talking about that, Yeah, and a lot of comedy has got really profane, which I like. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan, those guys. But they don't have to be profane. I mean, Jeff Foxworthy. I just watched Jeff Foxworthy's newest special.
Yeah.
And he doesn't do one redneck joke.
Nope.
But it's just stories. He's almost 60 years old now, and his story's about getting older and how shit works. And it's like, you dead on there. That's funny shit. Yeah.
Well, and Jeff I believe, he's a born again Christian. And, his act has never had profanity. And it
a lot of innuendo.
Yes. My dad likes an older comedian, Jerry Clower. Jerry Clower was a minister, and he was from the South, and he told stories.
Yeah, I was going to say he might have been one of the first to start just telling stories about his life.
Yeah.
And
the Ledbetter family.
Right.
And Percy Ledbetter.
Marcel, Udell.
And I've listened to a lot of the Jerry Clower stuff, and he is funny.
I've looked it up on Amazon and listened to it, what's available on there, and it's like, we met Jerry Clower up at the State Fair in Sedalia years ago. He was doing a set. It was kind of in a little park area. It wasn't on like the main stage. Little platform out there, and he done a set out there. And then afterwards, we walked up to him. Mom got his autograph, and pretty cool.
One year for Christmas, I got my dad a Jerry Clower CD, and he was like, "Wow, son," because he had mentioned it. Because he had mentioned about comedians being vulgar and cursing a lot, and he had mentioned Jerry Clower, and I was in the Army at the time, and I was stationed at Fort Campbell, so I was living in Tennessee, and got on Amazon, and I found some of his stuff, and I'm like,
right,
heck yeah.
Yeah.
But
there's one that goes a little too far even for me. That's Lisa Lampanelli.
The Queen of Mean.
The Queen of Mean. I mean, you're sitting there listening to it. Oh, Jesus Christ, she went there. Fuck.
Yeah. But she's one of those that.
And if she was male,
she would
white, no, she'd been.
Gary Owen gets. He's big with the black community, but
he was on BET.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, and he was married to a black woman, and his children are mixed, and he doesn't try to be black. He doesn't talk, you know, quote unquote black.
Right.
Never uttered the N word.
Right.
And matter of fact, he had one of his friends, and he was telling a story. He had one of his black friends come out, comedian friends come out on the stage, and Gary got to that part of the story, put the mic in front of the other guy's mouth, and he said the N word, and then Gary keeps telling it, and then it back over there, and it just keeps going back and forth, and Gary's like, I ain't saying that word.
Right.
No.
Yep.
And
I like this last special he was talking about. He got him and his wife were going through a divorce and everything, and said, his brothers go up to him and said, Gary, you don't go get some white chick, are you? Fuck no. I'm on the team, man.
Yeah. Man, I was hoping my son, you know, she'd you know, I was hoping my son would take after dad, and you know, no, he likes them white women.
Yeah. What was that? What he was talking about? His son was was a young man at the time. He was talking about, Dad, I'm black. He goes, yeah, but you're also white. He goes, no, Dad, I'm black. He goes, motherfucker, where do you think you got that good hair from?
He was talking about taking his daughter and her friend to do something, and the friend said something, and the daughter was like, you know, my people have been oppressed, you know, for so many years, and you know, hundreds of years, and the friend was like apologizing, and Gary said he's sitting in the front seat, and he's like, girl, you're half white. You ain't been oppressed a day in your life.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, there's cursing in comedy to accentuate a point, and then there's cursing just to curse.
Right.
You know, yes, I'm a little bit older now. I go back and I listen to Delirious, and I listen to Raw, Eddie Murphy's 2 stand-ups, and oh yeah, they're funny as shit.
Oh yeah,
because we grew up on those.
Right.
But I could see where there was cursing just to curse.
Yeah.
Because Richard Pryor live on Sunset Strip.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Richard Pryor was, you know, he's one of the original OGs. There's not a lot of cursing.
Right. And at the time, though, when that came out,
yeah,
we were, we had satellite dish, and we were watching it on HBO or whatever when it came out on there. And Mom just got totally offended by it.
Yeah.
You know, because she thought he cursed too much. But you go back and watch it now, and you're like going, that's much.
Yeah.
I mean, he said some motherfuckers, and,
yeah,
you know, but it wasn't that much.
Well, and the thing, I've noticed this, a new trend, and I know it kind of off the Gen X thing, but we're talking about comedians right now. And you go back and you watch Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy and Chris Rock and all those great black comedians that came.
Red Fox
from the late 70s into the 80s and everything. And there wasn't a lot of N-bombs.
Yeah.
And
well, Richard Pryor, one of his specials, he said that he would never say that word again after he got back from his trip from Africa.
Yes.
He said, because I didn't see any N-bombs in Africa.
Right.
He said, I seen black people.
Right. Well, and the thing is, you know, and I think I've told you this, when I went to Somalia in 1994, when we left San Diego on the ship, you had a lot of brothers, and you know, going back to the motherland, yeah, you know. And then we got there.
They're like, let's go back home.
And well, it's the actual African people didn't treat them like you're one of us.
Right.
No, you're an American.
Mm-hmm.
Just like September 12th, 2001.
Right.
We were all Americans.
Right.
There was no this American, that American. No, we were all Americans.
All Americans.
And that's the way that...
No red or blue. Or,
right.
Yeah.
When we were in Somalia, that's the way that the brothers, because we didn't have any women on the ship, but that's the way that they were treated as Americans.
Right.
It doesn't matter that, you know, our skin looks alike. You're an American. I'm a Somalian.
Right.
Just plain and simple. And,
of course, Richard Pryor also did say when he stepped off the plane and he looked around, he's like, I know somebody in my past is lying because these people are black.
Yeah. But anyways, let's see here. Okay, how we watch sports changed because there used to be the wide world of sports.
Yep.
And, you know.
Then you watched whatever was on Wide World of Sports.
Right.
If you wanted to watch sports that day, that's, you know, if it might have been downhill skiing from Switzerland, or it might have been Sugar Ray Leonard.
Yeah.
Boxing, you know.
If you had a local station and you had local teams, like WGN in Chicago,
right.
You're gonna catch the Cubs. You're gonna catch the Blackhawks, the Bulls, the Bears, maybe a White Sox game. I don't know what station in St. Louis, but you would catch the Cardinals or the Cardinals back in the day.
Of course, WGN went on to become a cable station.
Yes.
And so that's when they started showing every Cubs game. And that's how I got to watch the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Was when they played Chicago. I got to watch all those games because we had satellite then, you know.
Right.
And then same way, I get to watch them when they played the Braves.
Right.
Because the Braves had WTBS.
Yes.
You know. But before that, you might get to watch 2 or 3 Cardinal games a year.
Right.
And that was on, like, hell, it wasn't even Fox then.
No.
It was ABC Game of the Week or whatever, unless they made the playoffs. And then they televised all the playoff games.
Right.
You know, and NASCAR was the same way. I mean, there was like 4 or 5 races a year you could watch. They, you know, once they started televising like flag to flag, the Daytona 500.
Yeah.
But then cable came out and ESPN picked them up. You could watch every race.
Right. Okay. How boxing? You know, unless you were at the arena, because they were, there was no pay-per-views.
Right, they done the
closed circuit TV.
Closed circuit TV, and you had to go to like the Shrine Moss to watch it on a big screen.
Yes, and then HBO,
Showbox,
Showtime,
Showtime boxing.
Yeah, you know they started televising boxing, and
they weren't any big championship fights
yet,
but it was those came out on pay-per-view.
Right. Yeah,
but as far as just watching HBO, you got to watch it and probably got to see some better fights just because these were the young guys trying to make it or older guy trying to get back or, you know.
I think when Tyson was gunning up for his first title, you could have caught a fight on HBO.
Yeah. Yes.
HBO boxing.
Yeah.
But then as soon as he got that first title, it was all
pay-per-view. Yeah.
And, you know, we talked about it on last week's video podcast, him being the youngest unified champion of all time.
Yeah.
You know, concerts.
Oh.
Used to have, if you didn't go to a concert, you'd have to hope HBO had it. Like I saw Phil Collins on the No Jacket Required tour on HBO.
Well, and go back to the comedy, the HBO comedy specials.
Okay, yeah.
You know, you're like, wow, I get to see this uncut, you know, because you might see Eddie Murphy on The Tonight Show.
Yeah.
But you wasn't getting Eddie Murphy.
You
know.
You see Sam Kinison on The Tonight Show.
Right.
but you ain't getting Sam Kinison. You know, the live at Dangerfields.
Dangerfields, yeah.
Roseanne Barr.
Yeah.
Because they were doing little skits, and she played Rodney's wife.
All right.
And, you know, she got to go up and do like 5 minutes. Sam, you know, and I mean, there was just so many.
I mean, Sam Kinnison's HBO comedy specials what put him on the map.
Yes.
You know.
I mean,
that's what Rogan talks about.
Yeah.
Never heard of Sam Kinison. This girl at the gym was telling him, and she's doing the scene where she's laying on her belly, telling him about the necrophilias.
Yep. You know, and then he had such an impact with Rodney Dangerfield. In Rodney's movie Back to School, Sam plays the history teacher,
right?
And in the movie, he's a Vietnam veteran. When in reality, he's not old enough to be a Vietnam veteran,
right?
But he plays it just so well,
right?
You know, the stigma as at the time, because nobody understood veterans and whatnot.
Talking about not being old enough, that reminds me of the scene from Die Hard where the FBI guys are flying in a helicopter, and the white guy says, "Just like Saigon, hey, Slick."
No. That's wait, what'd you say? Die Hard?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
He goes, "Just like Saigon, hey, Slick." He goes, I was in grade school, motherfucker."
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, they're flying around the top of the Nakatomi building. Yeah. For some reason, I thought you said Lethal Weapon.
No.
Okay. Action stars.
Oh, yeah.
Stallone, Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis. You know, Chuck Norris really came into his own.
Oh, yeah. The Delta Force movies and
the Michigan accent.
Mission Action and
you know, they couldn't do any. I mean, granted, Schwarzenegger's first couple of movies, he didn't have a lot of dialogue because.
No, but Conan was still awesome.
Oh
yeah,
you know? Yeah. Well, it's because of his accent. It was so thick.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to do subtitles. Terminator, he didn't have a lot of lines. Conan, the Barbarian, didn't have a lot of lines.
I forget Mel Gibson. They were talking about. I think it was the Road Warrior. He had like 10 or 11 lines in that whole movie. You know, because there wasn't a lot of talking.
No.
You know.
No. Fast forward 20 years or so, the movie Soldier with Kurt Russell. Yeah. Somebody broke it down, what he got paid for that movie. Each word, he got paid $600,000 per word.
All right. That'd be all right. We'd be really kicking some ass right now, wouldn't we?
But, I mean, that's the thing is, he had maybe a paragraph in the whole movie.
Right.
And he was the main character.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, again, Mel Gibson, one of those action heroes.
Right.
Action stars.
Went on to become a hell of a producer, a writer.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
And then kind of fell from grace, but.
I think he's kind of made a comeback now, though. I hope, because I've always liked Mel Gibson.
Yeah.
I mean.
I want to do a dive. I'm going to have to do a rabbit hole dive at some point on Brandon Fraser. Why did he get blackballed?
Yeah, I mean, because he was.
Oh, he was.
You know, the Mummy movies and stuff. He was huge.
George of the Jungle, and I mean, he was a favorite. Encino Man, and then
what was the one where he gets the wishes from the devil?
Bedazzled.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Elizabeth Hurley.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, and then, you know, I don't know if you've seen him lately, but boy,
he's gained a little bit of weight. I saw him on Doom Squad. It's a live action DC on DC television show on Max. I started watching it, and I'm like, sounds like fucking Brendan Fraser.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, yeah, you can, the flashback scenes, you can see where he'd gained some weight.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you know, here lately, he won the Academy Award, Best Actor for The Whale. And so he's doing all the late night touring, and people asked him about, you know, his George of the Jungle, whether it was, you know, CGI or painted or whatnot, because, I mean, he was fucking ripped up.
Mm-hmm.
He said, no, I was working out hard. I was barely eating. And, hell, Airheads.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
The soundtrack alone.
If it had to been for that movie, we wouldn't have had a nickname for our drummer.
No. Thank you, Adam Sandler.
Yeah. Another great star.
Yeah.
That is a boomer or a Gen Xer.
Yeah.
Because I think he's 64, 65.
Yeah.
I mean, born.
Yeah.
He's like right at my age.
Yeah.
You know.
And the greatest thing about Adam Sandler, and love him, hate him, like his movies or not, he is loyal to his friends.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think
every movie you see, he's got multiples of people that's been in other movies with him.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you know.
David Spade, Rob Schneider, Kevin James, you know, Chris Rock. The list goes on and on. Mm-hmm. I think the only movie he's done that doesn't have any of his friends, Uncut Gems.
Yeah.
Because that was his...
I haven't seen that yet, but
that was his serious movie.
Right.
And he was... he helped write that movie with another team. Mm-hmm. And they directed it. And he was trying to go for an Oscar nod. Mm-hmm. You know, at least get nominated. Mm-hmm. And they didn't go for it. And, I mean, like, he really... You know, there wasn't that,
right.
Launch Ladyland. Yeah, no. You know, you think Billy Madison and Happy Gilmore, you know.
Longest Yard.
Grown Ups, 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Selma Hayek.
Oh.
Anyways.
We'll just reflect a little bit.
Yeah.
The other star that we basically watched from the time she just started to the superstar she is now, you know. Mm-hmm. I mean, Dusk Till Dawn.
Well,
she did have a very big scene, but my God, she stole the show.
Well, okay. She was in Desperado before she was in From Dusk Till Dawn. And
have you seen Banditas? With her and Penelope Cruz?
No.
Oh, it's worth a watch.
Have you seen The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard?
Yes. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
The words coming out of her mouth in that movie, you're like going, what?
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of like Jennifer Aniston and Horrible Bosses.
Oh, yeah.
You're like, Jennifer Aniston, she just said that? You know?
Okay.
What, can you see my pussy?
Yeah. Drew Barrymore.
Mm.
You saw her first movie. It was a blockbuster, E.T. Mm-hmm. And like she fell victim to the Hollywood child star. Mm-hmm. But
well, her parents were stars, and
yep.
When she done E.T., she was an alcoholic then, as a child.
Not as bad, because after E.T. came out, that's when she was able to, like, just walk into Club 54.
Mm-hmm. Studio 54.
Yeah, Studio 54, yeah. I'm sorry. But, yeah, I mean...
You know, we started talking about concerts. And I remember back in the day, if you wanted to go to a concert, you had to call the 800 number. And hopefully it went through. Because normally it was a busy signal.
Yep.
And you had to hit redial. Well, if you had redial.
Yeah.
Sometimes you had to go, you know, the old rotary phone.
Yep.
And then if it did start ringing through, you might be on hold for a while. And then you got to order tickets.
Well, up in the up in the big cities. We had places that you could go and get tickets.
Like Ticketmaster outlets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember one in particular.
But I mean, if living here,
Yeah.
and we wanted to go, well, like when Chris and I went and see Metallica, that was a phone call to get tickets.
Right. A buddy of mine and I, we stood in line. This was in '89. Stood in line to get tickets for Stones, Steel Wheels tour. They were $50 a piece.
Ton of money back then.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
And we didn't think about tax and service fee or anything like that.
So you took $100.
He had 50, I had 50.
Right.
And we stood out line, and this is in August, and we're in jeans and tie-dye because we had just came from like a huge party celebrating the 20th anniversary of Woodstock. Yeah. And I mean, we drove up there in his vehicle, and we're wearing like 3/4, like I've got a 3/4.
You say 89?
Yeah. 20th anniversary of Woodstock.
Okay.
Woodstock was in '69.
Yeah. I was just thinking, were you guys old enough to drive then?
Well, he was.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I hadn't got my license yet.
Right.
I got my license in December of '89.
Oh, okay.
But I had like a 3/4 sparkled motorcycle helmet on. He had like an Army helmet on, and we're just driving through downtown Kansas City to Seventh Heaven. And we finally get in there, and we're like, let me get one ticket. And they're like, $51.50. And it's like, oh, son of a bitch. I had $50.
Right.
We wasted 5 hours.
Oh, man. And didn't get to go.
Didn't get to go.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah. You know, we got to see every generation has seen well, I shouldn't say every generation, but the late boomers, and then of course Gen X and everything, got to see rock and roll change.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not going to say that rock and roll got heavier in the boomer age between like Elvis and the Beatles.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you look at Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis and
Little Richard, Fats Domino,
and everything, the Beatles was a big departure from that. Everybody's like, whoa, all the older people are like, who are these fucking hippies?
Yeah. Get a haircut, hippie.
Get a haircut. Their hair was fucking short in comparison,
Yeah.
But then, then you had that whole 70s genre.
The late 60s.
Right.
You had Alice Cooper.
Right.
You had the Doors, Cream, and you had all of these bands to where it's like, oh, you think the Beatles' hair is long? Hold my beer.
Yeah, Skinner.
Even the Beatles said,
Well, the Beatles' hair got a lot longer than it was in '64 when they came over here.
Right. And
especially Lennon.
Yeah. The music, because Paul and Ringo's hair never really got.
No.
George and John.
Yeah.
And
we've talked about this before. You can go way on back to my mom's music was big band era.
Yep.
Which was the 40s, basically.
Yeah.
And back in the 20s, you had the flapper era and stuff. But each decade, you could hear a song from that decade and go, oh,
yeah,
that's 20s, that's 30s, that's 40s, that's 50s, that's 60s, that's 70s, that's 80s. 90s to today,
it depends on the artist.
Right. But I mean, if you knew,
right.
Okay, Disturbed came out in 96.
Yeah.
Whatever. Okay, but just listening to the music itself,
right.
It's kind of like there's not a hard distinction from 90s to 2000s to teens to the 20s now.
Yeah.
It's like, it's kind of evolved into, I mean, the evolution of red dirt metal, Texas Hippie Coalition and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Skinner done on heavier guitars and shit, you know.
Right.
But there's just not. But like I say, you hear something from the '50s, you're like, yep. You know, that's '50s music. No, that's '60s music.
Yeah.
You know, the psychedelic music started coming out, which kind of evolved into metal.
Yeah, I mean the psychedelics, like '67, you know, the Haight Ashbury and you know, acid LSD really became a thing, and you know that heavy influence on Hendrix with his music, and then everything kind of started going like Skinner, 38 Special, Molly Hatchet, you know,
Southern rock.
yeah, Southern rock was a big thing, and you know, British rock and roll was getting heavier.
Yep. Thanks to Black Sabbath.
Sabbath, Zeppelin. You know, you had Priest come out in the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
You had Def Leppard's On Through the Night came out around that time.
And then High and Dry. And yep.
Pyromania and so on and so forth. You had Maiden in there. You Sex Pistols. And
the whole punk scene started.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing with the Pistols, they released one album. And they're a huge influence on the punk scene.
Oh, yeah.
Disco. And
a lot of great music in the disco era. You
yeah.
know, if you listen to music for a beat and, you know, something you could dance to, you know, like on American Bandstand, they'd always have the song, you know, they'd have the people there and they would judge the song and they're like, well, it's got a good beat. You can dance to it.
Yeah.
But I don't like his singing or whatever.
Yeah, right. You know, and then
the Bee Gees didn't get, I mean, in general credit because everybody associates them with the disco era.
Right.
But they wrote albums for 50 years.
Right.
You know, all different genres
know,
of.
Well, hell, we got to see the emergence of a brand new genre. Hip hop and rap.
Yeah.
You know, the first recorded, and it had been around before this, but the first recording was the Sugar Hill Gang, Rapper's Delight.
Right.
And they were 3 dudes with a full band.
Right.
And, you know, shortly after that, you had Run DMC coming out, you had LL Cool J, and then you had these 3 white Jewish kids that took the world by storm. Beastie Boys.
Yeah.
You know, and it's seeing the birth of a brand new genre. And you know, and it was all New York. It was all New York. And then all of a sudden, here comes these guys from California. It's taken over the nation. Now they're edgier.
Right.
They're controversial.
Yeah.
They've been spoken about by the President of the United States.
Right.
They've gotten a letter from the FBI saying that you shouldn't play this song.
Right.
And they used it as amazing publicity.
And they'd have to change clothes and sneak out of the venue so they didn't get arrested.
Exactly. But
NWA.
Yeah.
For those of you who are going, who are they talking about?
Yeah. I mean,
they weren't the first rock stars or first performers to get arrested, though.
No.
That, you know, that's another thing I just thought of. Everybody thinks that the musicians and actors and whatever started doing drugs in the 60s. No, it was way before then. You know, I mean, Ray Charles was a heroin addict. And he come out in the 40s, 50s, you know. And the jazz music scene was weed and heroin.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you go back and listen to a lot of jazz and you're going, you know, I bet if you was on heroin, it would make sense.
Well,
because it sounds like 8 guys playing different shit.
Right.
You know,
but it worked.
Right.
You know, you go back and you listen to old blues. Oh yeah, there's all kinds of fucking weed in there.
Yeah. Well, and Johnny Cash was a drug addict.
Yeah.
Back in the 50s.
Yep.
You know, didn't have nothing to do with the hippies in the 60s.
No.
I mean, he was addicted to painkillers and
Yeah.
Elvis.
Yep.
He took pills to go to sleep and he took pills to wake up.
Right.
And peanut butter and nanner sandwiches.
With marshmallow fluff.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and it's again the emergence or the internet.
Yeah. Changes the world. I don't know if it's for the better or not, but we get our information a lot quicker.
Yeah.
How many times do we go to the Google machine on this show?
Exactly. And, you know, and that's just like with any information.
Mm-hmm.
You got to look at the source.
Well, you know, when they invented the printing press,
mm-hmm.
there was a lot of people that said that was going to be the ruination of mankind.
Yep.
Because it was a ruination for the so-called leaders and
yeah.
the church officials and everything, because, you know, we've talked about this back in the olden times, most people couldn't read.
Right.
So the pastor, the priest, or whatever, he would tell them what the Bible said.
Yes.
And he could interpret it his own way, and this is how you got to believe.
Yep.
Hence all the different religions.
Exactly.
You know.
You know, and unfortunately, that's still rampant in Afghanistan.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
You got the imam,
Mm-hmm.
the iman, if you will, not imam, but iman, who is the religious leader.
Right.
And a lot of times he cannot read.
Right.
And he's saying what the Quran says merely off of what he was told.
Right.
And, you know, they're able to skew it into their vision.
Right. And what works best for their pocket.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, something that had a little bit of impact on the boomers, a lot of impact on Gen X, a lot of impact on millennials, and some impact on Gen Z. That, you know, the global war on terrorism, longest war in American history.
Yep.
We have more combat veterans today than we've ever had.
Right.
In the entire, since the Civil War.
Yeah. Yeah, because everybody was involved in that.
Yeah, every American.
But yeah, you're right, and you know, with Vietnam veterans, you'll see a guy with a Vietnam veteran hat on, and you think, God damn, that son of a bitch is old as fuck. Then you'll see another guy with a Vietnam veteran hat on, and he don't look that old.
Right.
Because it was a 10-year war.
Right.
You know, but the war on terror, I mean, you got 22 years. You know, if you were in from day one on
September 12th.
September 12th,
Yep.
you're not a young guy anymore.
Mm-mm.
But then you got the guys that just got back from there a year or so ago.
Yeah.
That were 18, 19 years old.
You had kids that weren't alive when the towers came down.
Right. And, you know, and there's even the possibility of a father and a son both serving.
Yeah. You know.
In the same war.
Right.
You know.
Rob Riggle.
Yeah.
He was in Afghanistan in 2002.
Right.
Yeah, 12 strong.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't part of that unit, but he knew the commander in that unit, who Rob Riggle actually played.
Mm-hmm.
Rob worked for him.
Right.
When he got to Afghanistan.
Right.
And so he knew the mannerisms and everything, and he played it to the best of his ability.
Mm-hmm.
And who better to play somebody in Afghanistan than somebody who was in Afghanistan?
Right.
Yeah.
Who could tell the directors, like, this ain't how this went.
Right.
You know, or, you know, yeah, you're dead on here.
Anyway, back to Gen X, if we will. And I know we're jumping all over the place, but that's...
We've been around a long time. We can jump all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen a lot. I mean, space travel.
Oh, my God.
Go to the moon.
I was too young to remember, or actually, no, I wasn't born whenever Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin walked on the surface of the moon.
I was, but I was really, really young.
Yes. To be honest, my first major memory that involved, the whole country was the election, the Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan election.
1980.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what, my first big memory of that.
Right.
And I was 6 years old.
Right.
I learned to read. You remember cartoons used to have, we'll be back after these brief messages, and it would actually be on the screen.
Right.
I learned to read that by hearing it, seeing the words, and understanding.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's just
going back to the wrestling. God, what's his name? He's current tag team champion now in WWF.
WWE.
WWE.
Kevin Owen.
Yeah. He learned how to speak English because he's from Quebec, Canada. He learned how to speak English by watching Monday Night Raw and listening to JR.
Yeah.
That's how he learned how to speak English.
I mean, and that...
I probably learned how to read basically before I went to school by watching Sesame Street.
Yeah.
Because they put the word and the pronunciation, and...
Okay, there's another show.
Yeah.
And that's been around for generations. And it's always been on public television.
Yep.
Public access television. Jim Henson was a big proponent because it had the Muppets.
Then you had the Muppet Show.
Oh, yeah. And I mean...
It was kind of funny in Rocky 3, where he's becoming a star. It was like, and Kermit introduces, today, Rocky Balboa! But that was actually from Sylvester Stallone being on the show, and they just overdubbed the Rocky Balboa on the introduction.
And there's, again, the tie between Lucas and Jim Henson, because Jim Henson designed and developed Yoda.
Right.
And it was Frank Oz who gave Yoda his voice. The little rat thing, Jabba the Hutt. Yeah. I mean, the puppets, the puppeteering, I mean, all of that. And it's come such a long way. I mean, Sesame Street.
Yeah.
The monsters.
Right. And how many drummers did we know back in the day that had an animal on their drum kit?
Oh, God. I mean, shit, there's a YouTube video of Animal and Dave Grohl having a drum off.
Right. Yeah, I've seen that.
Because the Smells Like Teen Spirits video, you don't see Dave Grohl's face.
Right.
Because he's headbanging the whole time.
Right.
Now, I'm not going to say that grunge was a new genre. Because that was just an offshoot of rock and roll.
And like with metal, a lot of that quote-unquote hairband metal was blues-based.
Yeah.
The guitar riffs and everything, but they just played it a little more distortion, a little faster.
Yeah. Maybe a down tuning.
Right.
But
then you had to have the front man.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And he had to be pretty.
Right.
Cinderella.
Yeah.
A big quote-unquote hairband. Night Songs.
It's blues.
Oh, it's bluesy.
Right.
I mean, if you can't hear the bluesy influence.
Oh, yeah.
Big time. then
Led Zeppelin was a blues band.
yeah.
You know,
Um,
I heard this one time, and I'm going, "Fuck, that's right." Led Zeppelin was the Metallica of the '70s, pretty much.
I can see it.
You know,
You know, it's just there's, and I'm sure of our tens of listeners, I hope we get a comment or two on this episode saying that either we're full of shit
Right.
or
you guys totally forgot about this.
yeah, forgot about this or
Probably
you know
did.
whatnot.
'Cause
Oh, I'm sure.
there's just a lot.
Well, you know, our generation
Right.
and the millennials were born and grew up in the '80s, but you know, I was alive through majority of the '70s, all of the '80s, so on and so forth.
Right.
But
I mean, I was born in the '60s.
right,
But the only '60s I really know about is what I learned later.
right,
You know.
right.
I
And-
mean, yeah, I heard the music.
Yeah.
And stuff. You know, of course, mom and dad, they listened to a lot of country music back then. And but what was cool was not only did we watch the Grand Ole Opry and Hee Haw, there's another show.
Oh my God, yes.
But we also watched the Midnight Special, Don Kirshner's rock concert,
Yeah,
American Bandstand.
yeah.
So I got that influence from all of that shit. You
Right.
know?
Okay. You mentioned American Bandstand, Soul Train.
Yeah.
Climb aboard the Soul Train, and I mean that was because like American Bandstand, because segregation, you know, long gone.
Right.
So it's like American Bandstand had the token couple,
Right.
but Soul Train, there were no token
Right.
Caucasians.
Well, except in that one episode or that one Charlie's Angels movie where Cameron Diaz goes in and gets to go dance.
Yeah, but I
Soul
think
Train.
but I think in that movie, like they said, she had a fat ass,
Right.
which Cameron Diaz does not have a fat
No.
ass. She got a nice little booty, but it ain't no fat ass.
Ain't no fat ass. Maybe they were making that PHAT.
Ooh, pretty hot and tempting,
Yeah.
possibly.
Yeah.
You know, we got to see a hardcore gangster rapper become a children's star. Ice Cube.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, because you got like parents that know him from the NWA,
Right.
Friday,
Right.
you know, and then you've got kids that know him from Are We There Yet?
Right.
Are We Done Yet?
Right.
You know, and it's like, oh, you like Ice Cube from Are You There or Are We There Yet? Well, listen to his music.
Yeah. Well, you got another hardcore gangster rapper that's been a TV cop now for over 20 years.
Ice-T.
Ice-T.
Yep. And
Who sang a song called Cop Killer.
with his band Body Count,
Yep.
who got called out by former President Bush
Yeah.
Sr. You know, and yeah, because he played, I'm not going to say he played a gangster. He was a gangster.
Right.
He was, you know, served in the Army, 25th Infantry Division in Hawaii, discharged honorably, and then went back to Los Angeles. He's back on the street. He's pimping and rapping and everything. And the one thing that I liked about Ice-T versus Snoop in the early days, you never saw Ice-T wearing blue or red. It was always, you know, I don't want to say neutral colors,
Right.
but they were like the whites and the black. It was
He
like,
wasn't wearing colors.
right.
Right.
It was like the Raiders. You know, it was the Kings, the LA Kings. You know, it was Los Angeles stuff.
Right.
Where Snoop chose, you know, he was a Crip. blue. Everything was blue. But, you know, Ice-T was in Breakin'.
Mm-hmm.
Breakin' 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, he always played, in the movies, it was funny, New Jack City.
Mm-hmm.
Played an undercover cop. You know, there was another one. It was like, I can't think of the name, but a bunch of rich guys would pay all this money to hunt a human.
Oh, that was a Van Damme movie.
Well, Ice-T's in it because I remember seeing him on like the poster because he's got his
Maybe it's not
hair.
the same movie. There's a Van Damme movie that's just down in New Orleans.
Yeah. Because this one, it's got like a scope.
They're giving they're taking basically homeless veterans off the street that don't have any. In this movie, they don't have any. They make sure they don't have any family or anything, you know, that would miss them. And they basically take them out and they give them a money belt with like $5,000 in it. And it's like, if you can get from here to here with this money belt, it's yours to keep. And then these rich dudes go out and hunt them.
Yeah.
Well, they end up killing this one guy whose daughter is looking for him, and that's how Van Damme gets involved. I can't remember the name of that movie, but.
Okay. Let's see here.
To the Google machine.
Yeah. I don't want to download the fucking app. Biography. Huh, okay. Let's see here. I don't. Trademark, trivia, quotes, salary. Fuck. More on this person. Works.
Another guy that has just really blowed up over the last 25 years, 30 years or so, Samuel L. Jackson.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
You know, got his start in a bit part in Coming to America.
Yep. Man. Video, albums. Editorial list. No, I don't. Fuck. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I'm still going, and it's difficult because I don't have my glasses. I'm old. Okay.
While you're looking that up, I'm gonna grab a cup
Yeah.
of coffee.
Yeah. I mean, sure. You know what? Hey, why don't we do this? We're going to take a real quick break. We're going to play a commercial.
Okay.
And then we'll be right back.
Sounds good.
All right. We'll be right back, guys. Stay tuned. If you like what you hear during the J&M Solve the World podcast, that's a band called Blindside out of Southwest Missouri. Their music is used exclusively by the J&M Solve the World podcast because, well, James and I were part of the band. If you would like your own copy of Blindside's Want You Some, Get You Some with their hit songs 12, Engine, and FU, send a self-addressed stamped CD mailer to J&M Solve the World, 2120 East 342 Road, Halfway, Missouri, 65663. And if you would like it signed by the 3 surviving members of Blindside, just include $5. But until next time, you keep one fist in the gold, one foot in the gutter, and we'll be seeing you. Thank you. And we're back. So I got it figured out. It's one of two movies.
Okay.
IMDb is being stupid. It won't let me click on either one of these to read what it is.
Right.
But it's either Ricochet from 1991 or Trespass from 1992.
Okay. I think I've seen Ricochet, but I don't remember.
Yeah. And then, you know, we were just talking. And then you've got to be careful when going down some of these IMDb rabbit holes, because he's got a lot of movie credits, but it's because he's performing a song.
Oh, okay.
But then like the movie Stealth Fighter. No, he's an actual actor.
Right.
Plus an executive producer. Sonic Impact. 3,000 Miles to Graceland. That was one that, and he's actually got a part. It's not just singing.
Right.
No. And of course, you know, everybody knows him. Law and Order, SVU. Longest working actor, continuous working actor in Hollywood up until the strike.
Right.
Because if I remember correctly, he'd been on every episode of SVU since they started.
Right.
That's different. And I decided, you know what, my iPad is sitting right here, and instead of trying to read the shit on my phone, I got a fucking almost 13-inch iPad I can read, because I don't know where my glasses are right now.
Oops. After last night, who knows?
Yeah, no shit. Let's see here. Oh, we got to see the first third-generation wrestler transition to the biggest movie star in the world.
Or at least highest paid.
Well, I mean, you could say the biggest.
Right. Well, yeah. 6'5", 265 pounds or whatever. Yeah.
Well, and I would say that was probably, you know, like the Rundown or Walking Tall, because when he played Roadblock in G.I. Joe, he was a lot bigger.
Yeah.
When he played Hobbs,
right,
in the Fast Saga, he was a lot bigger.
Yeah. Speaking of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, but
yes,
yeah.
And then the
first third generation wrestler to ever win the world title.
I wanted to say he was the first third generation.
He was, but he also won the world title too. He's the first to do that. Randy Orton, now he's won it.
Yeah,
and he's a third generation.
Yep. Because I think Natalia's only a second.
Yeah.
Because she was a 9-heart, not an actual heart. Dwayne Johnson's daughter is now wrestling.
She's now wrestling, yeah.
She's a fourth.
Yeah. She's in NXT right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, it's with the company.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that's something else that we have seen in our generation. The WWF becoming the WWF to the WWE.
Right.
And becoming the worldwide juggernaut.
Right. Just sold to Endeavor for $9 billion.
Yes.
I mean,
and they're not going to change anything.
Okay. Talk about stuff we've seen totally new come about. The birth of the UFC.
Yeah.
You know, there was nothing like that before.
No.
You had kickboxing, you had taekwondo tournaments, you had boxing, you had
Kung Fu, karate, you know, yeah.
But
oh, shit.
the UFC is, mixed martial arts.
Right. And when it first started, you could put a sumo and a taekwondo expert.
Right.
Or a brawler and a kickboxer.
Yeah, because there was no weight categories.
Yep.
There was no rules basically at that point. I mean, you could kick them in the balls, and
I think eye gouging was about.
Might have been, yeah. And there wasn't no rounds.
No.
It was, I think, 25-minute time limits.
Yeah.
Go. And then we may have talked about this, but the Gracies.
Oh yeah.
Proved that a jiu-jitsu master, a small black belt in jiu-jitsu, could take down a bigger opponent in any other discipline.
Right.
And beat them, choke them out.
There's a video out there of Hazenthor Mountain from Game of Thrones, and he's sitting there sparring with Conor McGregor.
Uh-huh.
And of course, Mountain is 6'9", almost 400 pounds.
Right.
He's a mountain.
Right.
And Conor would get up, throw a couple little kicks, and then like really back off.
Right.
Because fucking he gets his hands on you.
He
and
does.
now he just had a boxing match, and
Really?
he shredded a lot of weight.
Really?
He looks more menacing now
Yeah.
than he did.
Right.
Because he's cut the fuck up.
Right.
And I can only imagine how much power he has. Strongman competitions.
Right.
They've become so much bigger than they were.
Well, and you can go back to Schwarzenegger. I mean, he put bodybuilding on the map.
Yes.
When his movie Pumping Iron came out, the documentary, whatever,
Yeah.
it changed everybody wanted to be a fucking bodybuilder then.
Oh yeah.
It was like, well, what is this? And they started showing it on Wide World of Sports or whatever, a bodybuilding, the Mr. Olympias and stuff like that. And
I
that,
mean,
and that all, if you go back and look at it, about that same period of time is when you started seeing that body type starting to show up in professional wrestling.
yes.
Because before then, guys were just in shape, or they might have looked like a truck driver
Yep.
or something, but then you started seeing like Tony Atlas and
Flair when he came on the scene.
but Flair wasn't really, he was a power lifter before he got into professional wrestling and was like 300 pounds.
Yeah.
And then he had that plane crash, and then that's when he dropped down to about 240, which is 230, 240 is where he wrestled at his career. But yeah, like Jesse the Body Ventura, those were the first bodybuilder type guys.
Rick Rude.
Right.
And it was rumored that Rick Rude was a former Chippendales dancer. That's why he looked like that.
Right.
And he had the moves.
That could have been.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. Cocaine was in Coke years ago, and cocaine's been around forever.
Ever.
And it was never, it wasn't a big deal. I mean, because it wasn't talked about until the 80s.
Right.
Until
Till
Wall
cocaine,
Street and...
Well, cocaine built Miami, Florida.
Yeah.
I mean,
Allegedly.
Allegedly, yeah. Okay. Say hello to my little friend.
The gangster movies.
Yeah.
The
Godfather.
That was, yeah.
That was in the 70s, but that's our generation.
Yeah. And, with The Godfather, you had the advent of gangster movies, mob movies.
Right.
To where you wanted to be in the mob. Because it was the Godfather.
Until you got to the end of it, and you're going, yeah, maybe I don't.
Especially if you're Joe Pesci in Goodfellas.
Oh, God, yeah.
But, Casino. A lot of that is based on real stuff.
Right.
Goodfellas.
Yeah.
A lot of that's based on real stuff. And you know, when the characters are based on real people, that's when it gets like the movie takes a new toll. Not like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. We
Right.
spoke about that.
Right.
You know, here's real events that change.
Right.
You know, Margot Robbie plays Sharon Tate.
Right.
And, you know, Abigail Folger's there.
And when I'm watching that movie, I'm going, oh, God, I don't want to see Margot Robbie get sliced up. What the fuck?
Right, right. You know, and that's because we know how it really played out.
Right.
But then in the movie, it's a great ending.
Oh, yeah.
Because Sharon Tate doesn't die.
And, you know, most Tarantino movies are pretty graphic from the start.
Mm-hmm.
Once Upon a Time?
No.
You know?
It builds up to it.
You're kind of like, what? And then that final
ending,
part,
yeah.
ending sequence.
Yep.
Where he bashing that girl's head into the freaking fireplace mantle and the phone and everything. You're like, whoa, yeah, okay. The first one that he hits her with the dog food can in the mouth and just
yep,
knocks the side of her face off. You know,
Leonardo with the flamethrower.
Yeah,
yeah. I kept this from such and such movie, and I think it still works.
The five fifths of McCluskey or something like that.
Yeah. But I mean, you know, you think about it, you know, and we've talked about special effects and how they have changed and how Star Wars, you know, like I said, if you can get an original copy before anything was changed and you look at it and it still works today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, more so than going back and watching the original Star Trek series.
I've got to doing that here lately since I got Peacock.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting, but yeah, I mean.
It is, but.
What the really interesting fact, I'm watching the original series, how short the crewmen, the girls, how short their skirts are.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like.
Yeah.
This is the 60s. I mean.
Yeah.
She has to trim.
Yeah.
There's going to be shit hanging out. Of course, they had hose on.
Yeah.
You know, but it's like, oh, shit. That's why I liked this show when I was growing up as a kid.
You know, and the cigarette ads.
Oh, yeah.
We used to see those on TV.
Yep. You've come a long way, baby. The Virginia Slim ads.
Yep. The Marlboro Man.
Marlboro Man.
Yep.
Yep.
Joe Camel.
Well, you talk about, you know, like you can watch Jaws today on a high def television and it looks fucking great.
Yep.
You'd thought it was made in the last 10 years, except when they're at the hospital and the mayor, he's trying to get the mayor to sign the order for Quint to go kill the shark. And the mayor is sitting there in the hospital at the nurse's station smoking a cigarette.
You know, if Hollywood were to make a movie and they're basing it around a certain time period,
right?
The 70s, the 60s, the 50s, you know, whatever it may be,
right?
And people aren't smoking,
then it's not right.
No.
Yeah.
Because you
you go back to gangster movies in the clubs and shit. I mean, it's nothing but a haze of smoke and everybody smoking cigars and cigarettes.
Or, you know, there was, you know, you had the exhaust systems. And Harlem Nights, even there,
right?
Everybody was smoking.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how many concerts do we go to? And on the way home, your eyes are burning from all the cigarette smoke. Because you could smoke anywhere.
Yeah.
Back then.
Yeah.
I mean, Shrine Mosque, we used to go up there or watch wrestling. And, of course, it didn't help, too. I'm in the back seat, and Mom and Dad's in there blazing, you know. And my eyes would be burning. It's like, shit.
Son of a bitch.
Well, I used to have a CB club back in the 70s.
Yeah.
And their meetings was the old VFW hall there in Buffalo. You know, the one there just off of 32. Well, their meetings was in the basement.
Yeah. Oh, God.
And you talk about smoky. I mean, it was because everybody was smoking.
Yeah. It's we have come a long way.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things have changed, and some for the good, some for the not so good.
I'm just glad we were. I mean, not that we're that much more intelligent now, but we've experienced a lot more.
Yeah.
But back when we were young and stupid, we didn't have our cell phones.
No.
With cameras and
No.
video and
fuck no.
It's like, yeah.
How much shit would we have been in? I mean, speaking on myself, I see photos because my memory's fucked, but I'll see photos and it's like all of a sudden it takes me back to that time. I can start to remember, I can start to piece together shit going on around that time, and it's like, we did that.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that we're able to, blaze a trail for, we were there for the millennials. We were, if de facto, one of the last latchkey kids. Because I think some of the early millennials were latchkey in the 90s.
Yeah. And it, and we talked about that. It started in our generation, but actually Ann was talking about, and of course she's a boomer. She was a latchkey kid.
Yeah.
Because her mom worked too. And she'd get home from school. It was, a couple 3 hours before either one of her parents got home.
Well, and that time frame, even when I was younger, we never locked the house.
Oh, fuck no.
Didn't have to worry about anything.
No. And the cars were parked outside.
Yep.
Keys in them.
Yep.
Didn't think about nothing like that.
Nope.
Where I started locking my car at work the first time would have been, this had to have been in the late 90s. I was working in Bolivar, and we didn't really have a lot to park on at the shop there. You remember at Lovett's? So I parked across the street. There was a parking lot over there.
Yep.
I just bought a carton of Marlboros, and I had them laying. I don't think I had them laying on the seat. I had them laying just underneath the front seat, where I could reach down and grab one or whatever.
Yeah.
And I went to go to lunch. My fucking carton of cigarettes was gone. Some asshole walked by there, and of course this was when they were starting to go up too.
Yeah, from $1.50 to $2.
Right. Yeah. But I got to the truck, and I'm like, reached down to grab me a pack of smoke. The fuck, sorry sons of bitches, So I started locking my vehicle then, and I've been locking it ever since. But at that time, even though here at the house, we never locked nothing.
No.
Didn't have to worry about it.
No.
Because you knew all your neighbors.
Well.
And there wasn't that many people lived around here then either.
Yes. Well, and you got something a little special. Like nobody coming up your lane without you guys knowing.
Right.
Either the dogs are going to let you know, or you're going to hear them.
Right. But now since we got more people living here, we actually have traffic.
Oh, God.
When I'm mowing the yard and I go across and mow the island and across there, I look both ways because I won't get ran over by Aiden,
You know what? We have gone on.
We could think of a lot more.
Oh, and I'm sure we will.
Yep. The bottom line basically is, and I'm not disparaging any other generation, but we grew up and have lived and still living in a very great time.
Very true.
I mean, you hear a lot of bad shit going on around the world on the news and stuff. And people say, the world's going to hell in a handbasket, but honestly, I don't think the world's been safer, really, than it is right now. We just hear about all the bad shit.
Yeah.
Easier.
Yeah, you don't hear about the good.
Right. It's like the football player that beats up his wife or something like that, or gets arrested for drugs. You hear about that guy, but you don't hear about the other 1,500 NFL players that are doing great charity work and giving back to their community.
Right.
And, you know.
Right. You know,
I mean,
you don't hear about, you know, what all Travis Kelce's 87 and running does. You don't hear about what Patrick Mahomes's 15 and my homies does.
Right.
You don't hear about the different charities. It's like,
and the only reason you know about it is because you live in Kansas City.
right.
But you got all these other NFL cities and Major League Baseball cities and National Hockey League cities. That all these guys are doing great work.
Right.
You hear about the dumbasses.
Yeah. Pujols. When he first was playing in St. Louis, he had a charity golf tournament every year. And even when he went to play for the Angels, he still came back and held that.
Right.
Because he loved the city of St. Louis. Because they accepted him with open arms.
Right.
You know, the same thing with Mark McGuire.
Right.
Even after all that shit came out about fucking
steroids,
whatever.
Yeah.
When he came back to St. Louis as a batting coach,
right,
he was met with open arms.
Yeah.
So, you know,
and not just because I'm a Cardinal fan, but you look at fan bases around the country, whether it be baseball, football, or whatever. St. Louis is one of the best. The Cardinal fans are probably some of the best because, well, I remember we went up to a Rams game, and this was after Kurt Warner was gone.
Yeah.
And he was playing for the Arizona Cardinals, and they were playing in Arizona. When Kurt Warner stepped out on the field, he got a standing ovation from that sold-out crowd in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Because, it wasn't like, fucking traitor, he's playing for the Cardinals. No.
Yeah.
This guy won us a Super Bowl.
Right.
Then after he scored the first touchdown, it's like, okay, Kurt, you can slow down now.
Well, it's the same as me going to a Chiefs-Raiders game at Arrowhead in Kansas City, and I'm wearing a black and silver Rich Gannon jersey. Yeah, I'm wearing Raiders fucking colors, but it's Rich Gannon.
Right.
And I've loved to rub that in any Chiefs fan's face, and a true fan, a longtime fan, they will agree that Gannon should have kept the starting job when Gerbach came back. And that's it.
Yep.
That's all I'm going to say. But until next time, you have just listened to another episode of Stu Him Productions presents
J&M Solve the World
After Dark.
I have been James.
And I have been Matt. And until next time, you keep one fist in the gold, one foot in the gutter, and we will be seeing you.
Peace.